National Weather Service in Raleigh. My name is Jonathan Blaze, and I'm here for the routine weekly weather briefing for Central North Carolina. Our briefing is covering the period of today, Tuesday, through next Monday, which is January 23rd. So we're going ahead and get started here on Tuesday morning because of the MLK holiday yesterday. A quick look at the current radar across the region shows some scattered showers, mainly of a light nature, moving across much of the area. The rain today with this weather system is going to be a little bit patchy, intermittent, but in general, it's going to be a little cool and unsettled for today with periods of rain, mainly light rain, and temperatures near just below average for the day. No thunderstorms or anything particularly heavy is expected. And we'll be talking about the weather here for the next few days coming up on this slide, where we look at the upcoming weather map. Right now, it looks like we have a series of weather systems moving rapidly across the country. Many of you have probably heard about the atmospheric rivers or the unsettled pattern and stormy pattern across the Pacific in California and Oregon. Well, with that kind of setup, those systems tend to move fairly quickly across the country. It tends to be kind of mild pattern as we get a lot of Pacific air and not a lot of cold Arctic air or warm, humid air. So it tends to be a fairly mild and progressive pattern with a weather system moving across the area every couple of days. And that's what we have for the bulk of this period. We have one weather system coming through today, which is associated with primarily a cold front that isn't terribly strong and just some mild air in its wake. That'll move through, that precipitation will move through the area mainly through early to mid-afternoon. Looks like the rain in the triad probably be over by 1 or 2 o'clock. Let's just say 2 o'clock to be safe. And here in the triangle, maybe 2, 3, 4 o'clock at the latest. And even down in places like Fayetteville and Goldsboro, the rain should all be gone by sunset. And rainfall totals today should be fairly light. We'll have a high pressure briefly move in for Wednesday, and that'll produce some milder conditions with highs in much of the area in the 60s. And as we head to Thursday, you can see on the weather map a fairly robust weather system producing a lot of widespread precipitation across the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, and even the Appalachians here. What's important to note with this is we'll have actually a warm front move through early on Thursday, so we'll have even milder conditions on Thursday with a warm southerly breeze that may be gusty at times. We'll have highs in much of the area well into the 60s and even some lower 70s, and we'll be threatening some record highs. So it'll be very warm on Thursday. And all the showers associated with the front here will be coming in probably late in the day, probably more like Thursday night for most of us. So milder temperatures for Wednesday and Thursday. There could be some morning fog and stratus with some spotty drizzle or sprinkles. But dry on Wednesday, and the rain on Thursday is going to be later in the day, and mostly showers. There's a tiny chance of a thunderstorm in a few spots because of the warm temperatures, but don't think that's going to be a big deal. That system moves out Thursday night, and we have high pressure and a westerly and northwesterly flow moves into the area for Friday and even into Saturday. And then the next storm system moves from the lower Mississippi Valley across our area late on Saturday night, and especially on Sunday. And then by Monday morning, it's up here located in the New England area with rain ending in our area on Monday morning. More on that here in just a moment. Looking at the rainfall totals for the next 5 days. Unfortunately, these rainfall maps run from 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. each day, and given the timing of our weather systems, doesn't line up with those real well, so things are a little bit disjointed. But if you look for the plot for today for rainfall for the 24 hours ending at 7 a.m. tomorrow, we see rainfall amounts generally on the order of 1/10 to maybe 1/4 of an inch in much of the Piedmont, a little bit lighter amounts toward the coast. Again, rainfall amounts we expect with today's rain probably going to be 1/10, maybe 2/10 in most spots at most, so a fairly light event. Dry weather will overspread the area for tonight. And on Wednesday, there's a little spattering of precipitation noted here. This is going to be very light, more like sprinkles and mist perhaps, and some of that fog and drizzle that'll be developing across the area toward daybreak. Maybe a little bit, I won't say heavier, but a little bit more organized rain, perhaps in the foothills. But for most locations, Wednesday will be dry. Thursday, this plot here shows showers associated with the front. That front comes through here late in the day Thursday, especially Thursday night. And the amounts here, again, are pretty light for most of us. If we get any rain, it'll be a tenth, maybe 2/10 in a few spots that get heavier amounts. Friday, dry. And this precipitation that shows up here on Saturday really is for very late Saturday night, almost toward daybreak on Sunday, which is really going to be our wettest weather system that moves through the region on Sunday and Sunday night. So the 5-day total that shows up here in the lower right chart shows rainfall amounts ranging generally from a 1/4 of an inch to maybe 1/2 inch in some of this darker green area. It shows up from Raleigh and Greensboro south and west, and lighter amounts off to the north and east. But if we look at the next chart, on the right-hand side, we see a 7-day rainfall forecast. This is the rainfall through next Tuesday morning, and this does include all the rain event that will come through on Sunday and Sunday night, which should be a fairly significant event, it looks like. And most of the area here will at least get an inch over this upcoming week, and even places down toward the South Carolina border might get more like 1.5 inches, if not a little more. So unsettled on Sunday and Sunday night with the greatest rainfall potential over the next 7 days, and the most significant rainfall occurring on the last day of the forecast period there. If we look, jump to the left side part of the screen here, you'll see the rainfall amounts for the past 7 days. And the heaviest or more significant rainfall has occurred in the western Piedmont. And that's been that's been generally the case for the past several weeks, with more significant rain across the western Piedmont and notably lighter amounts across the coastal plain. That pattern has been going on again for several weeks, and it's has reflected a little bit of the case with the drought update I'm going to show on the next slide. With the upcoming 7-day rainfall totals, everyone should at least get an inch, and that should actually help with some of the drought conditions that I'm going to highlight here on this slide. This was updated from the drought monitor and conference last Tuesday. So this main panel here in the middle shows the current drought classification. For most of us, there's no drought, but there is some abnormally dry conditions in the yellow that shows up, and even some moderate drought that shows up in just the fringes of our area, perhaps in Wayne and Sampson counties. But if we compare to last week's drought, which shows up here in the lower left, you'll see there's been some notable improvement here in the southern Piedmont and Sandhills areas, locations like down to Albemarle and Wadesboro and even Laurinburg. And a little bit of introduction, a little abnormally dry condition up here toward Warrenton near the Virginia state line. But all in all, the table on the lower right shows the change since last week across the state, and there's been some improvement and some reduction in the areas that have been either abnormally dry and with moderate drought. And again, with rainfall expected, especially over the weekend on Sunday, these conditions should continue to improve. All right, looking to the excessive rainfall outlook for the next 3 days, no risk of flash flooding or really significant rain is expected for today through Thursday. The 3-day total rainfall amounts through Thursday probably be a couple tenths of an inch, so no worries there. Severe thunderstorm and thunderstorm potential for the next 8 days. The only thing that shows up on the graphic here is this light shading on Thursday. And this is for just a small chance of a thunderstorm, nothing strong or severe. And again, I think the chances of us seeing a thunderstorm in our area is pretty small, although we will have fairly mild temperatures with highs on Thursday well into the 60s in the Triad and the lower to mid 70s across much of the area. Looking further ahead out for the 8 to 14 day period, looks like temperatures across our area will either be near normal or slightly above normal, averaging out through that period. And the precipitation chances are either going to be slightly above normal or maybe even a little bit better above normal. So the signal here is for kind of a milder and potentially wetter type regime as we head through the last couple of weeks or last week or so of January. Not a terribly favorable pattern for any kind of significant cold intrusions and wintry weather, although it only takes a brief window of a colder patch of air and a storm system in just right spot that could bring some wintry precipitation. So don't give up on snow threat here through the end of the month, although the pattern here suggests a prolonged period or kind of a great setup for such an occurrence is unfavorable at this time. And real quick, for the summary page here, again, we have a series of fast-moving Pacific systems are going to move through the area this week. That typically results in a milder temperature pattern and weak systems that come through every couple of days. One system will move through today and another late Thursday. Again, it'll be mild on Wednesday and quite warm on Thursday. For the Raleigh forecast, we have an official high right now of 71. Some locations to the south and east of Raleigh will likely get into the mid-70s. So while the forecast icon here looks kind of gloomy with the chance of rain and showers, that will likely be restricted to late in the day. And for the most part, Thursday will be a fairly warm and breezy day. Outside, some morning fog on Wednesday morning and Thursday morning. No significant weather hazards are really in the forecast, along with maybe some gusty winds on Thursday. So nothing hazardous or terribly impactful for the next handful of days. And again, the strongest storm system or biggest weather feature we'll have for the next week will arrive likely on Sunday and Sunday night. And that system will be coming from the west and southwest, and that may produce some more significant precipitation, perhaps up to an inch of rain during that period. So a slightly busy period, but nothing terribly threatening at this point or terribly hazardous. But we'll keep an eye on things through the week and up into our next weekly briefing, which will just be in a couple days on Thursday morning. Hope everyone has a great week. I'll stand by if there are any questions. Otherwise, take care and thanks for joining us.